Hi, this is Kim Guzman. I'm going to be teaching you how to do this honeycomb Tunisian crochet blanket. It's called the Honey Sweet Baby Blanket, available on my website. And this is all one color. I know that the shadow, see, it's one color. The shadow makes it look like it's two colors because these poofs of the honeycomb stand up quite a bit and it's causing a shadow here. Now, what I've used for this project is 3 skeins of Red Heart with Love in the color Lilac. Alright, for this project, I'm using a Denise interchangeable hook, size L. It comes with cords that you can attach for any length. And you'll need a cord about 1/3 the length of the project you're making. This project requires a stitch count of a multiple of 8 plus 11. So you are going to just start off with a multiple of 8, any multiple of 8, 16, 24, 32, and then add 11 to it and you'll be able to complete the project as written. For this project I'm going to use 16 plus 11, which means 27 chains. So I'm just going to work 27 chains. 1, 2, 3, and when we come back I'll have my 27 chains. Okay, I have my 27 chains, and now I'm just going to pull up a loop. Now this is kind of long for a scarf because I do want you to practice the cables, but it would make a wide scarf. So if you wanted to just continue on these 27 stitches, you could, and it would just make a wide scarf, unless you're using a smaller hook, because that's pretty long. How big is that? Well, it might actually work because the cables do scrunch it up. So let's just see how it goes. It might just work for a scarf. And you will need practice because the cabling is a more challenging project. So I'm just going to pull up loops here in each chain. I skipped the first one, and then I'm going to pull up loops. Now when I get to the end, I'm going to have 27 loops on my hook, and see how I just pull them up there with my thumb and my fingers there. I just pull those loops up because it is hard. It's hard to get your hook in there. So you just pull it up and place it on the hook, and it makes it so much easier. And so I'm just going to be pulling up loops here, and I will have 27 loops on my hook when I get finished with this foundation. Okay, here I have 27 loops on my hook, and when you have a lot of loops on your hook when you're working in Tunisian, allow the loops to extend down the hook. You don't need to make sure that you scrunch them all up when you're picking them up. Just extend them and keep your hand lightly on the hook, right over the loops. Don't try to keep them in one spot or your hand is going to cramp. I guarantee you're going to have hand cramping if you do that. Now, for the actual blanket, I have chained 92 on the pattern, and if you'd like the pattern to follow along with the text, please find it on CrochetKim.com. I will also leave a link to it in the notes, the description of the video. So now I'm going to close the foundation. Chain 1 to close the first. That's just a yarn over and pull through 1. That's a chain 1. Now to close the remainder on this foundation row, I'm just going to yarn over and pull through 2 all the way across. All the way. I will end with 1 loop on my hook, which will be the first loop of the next row. It'll be the very first stitch, the next row. And just keep closing those all the way across. Alright, I've closed all my stitches, and this is how it looks here in the beginning. That would make a rather wide, I think that's 11 inches across. So that would make a really wide scarf. But if you were using a smaller hook or smaller yarn, you could still get away with a scarf with that. Now I am going to, for the first 3 rows, I am going to do a front post, back post stitch pattern. And how you do that, here's the first stitch. You always skip this little guy hanging out over here. This is the first stitch of the row. Do front post, you just go around the back of the stitch, and you go around the back of both posts here, and then yarn over and pull a loop through. Now I'm going to do a back post, and this one is a little more challenging. It does take some practice. Take your hook and put it behind your work and put it over the top of the 2. And see there, it looks like I got a little extra. Hold on. I'm only supposed to have 2 back there. There we go. There they are. And see, when I have to hold this in order to get the yarn through. Let's see. Now I'm going to do a front post. This makes the stitch pop out to the front, and a back post brings it into the back. And see, it's especially challenging here on the first row. But that's to be expected. The first row of anything is usually pretty difficult. And then front post and back post. Now you're going to do that all the way across the row until you get to the last stitch. If you're new to Tunisian, please count your loops when you're working on them, because sometimes it's really easy to miss, especially the last stitch. So just do front post, back post all the way across until you get to the last stitch. Now here I'm at the last stitch, and what you always do with the last stitch, unless the pattern instructs otherwise, is insert your hook so that you go under 2 loops here. That's called a knit stitch usually, but you have to go under 2 loops. If you don't, it will cause a loopy edge, and because that stitch looks different than the others, it's very often missed, and that's why you should count your stitches just to make sure that you've got it. Now to close this row, and this is row 2, chain 1, pull through 2, and again, and again, and do that all the way across until you have 1 loop remaining. Now that I've closed all the stitches for row 2, rows 3 and 4 will just be a repeat of row 2. So you just start off with a front post, and then a back post, and then you'll just repeat the same thing all the way across, same closing, for 2 rows. Okay, now here I've completed my 4th row of front post, back post stitch pattern. And as you can see, it's not curling. That's the reason I've chosen to place this stitch pattern at the bottom and on the sides of this afghan, is because it helps with curling. Now if you still have excessive curling, or the stitch pattern is really difficult for you to do, try using a larger hook. Many times the curling will go away if you will use a larger hook, and your tension may be different than mine. You may have to go up a hook size. So now, to do the baby afghan and this small piece of the baby afghan, I am going to do front post, back post on the edges as well. So front and back and front and back. It's just right here on the edge. And then I'm going to do my stitch count, the 16. I'm going to do 16 knit stitches. Now remember, the knit stitch, here's the front vertical bar, here's the back vertical bar. When you pull them apart, you will see that it goes up in the top and down in the back. And what you need to do is insert your hook right in between from front to back and pull up a loop. And I need to do 16 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see how I just moved the loops down? Don't squish them up there. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.